guys? Hannah Marie Strong RD here, and today we're kicking off our three-part series, Why Macros Matter, starting with everyone's favorite macro, carbohydrates. But before diving in, let's talk about what we mean by the term macronutrient. When we hear the prefix macro, we think of something that's big and large scale. Macronutrients are the nutrients our bodies require in large amounts, namely carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. As a registered dietitian and sports nutritionist, I work primarily with strength-based athletes and fitness enthusiasts. A major component of my job is helping clients figure out their ideal intake of macronutrients. A lot of people are familiar with the concept of macros. If it fits your macros is a common diet strategy in the fitness world, with many believing you can eat whatever you want so long as the calories and nutrients align with your macro targets. Is this strategy worth the hype? Why care about macros in the first place? And does the percentage of carbs, proteins, and fats really matter? To answer these questions, I created Why Macros Matter. In this three-part series, I'll be explaining why you should care about each of the macros and the role they play in our workouts. Hint, if you aren't paying attention to macros, you aren't going to get the look or strength you want. Now that we know what a macro is, let's get into our first nutrient, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the head honcho of the macros. They provide 4 calories per gram and should make up about 45 to 65% of total calories. What comes to mind when you think of carbs? Bread and pasta and rice, oh my! While these are definitely great food sources of carbohydrates, we can't talk carbs without mentioning their chemistry. Carbohydrates are actually sugar molecules made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. Carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, aka sugar. Glucose, which is another way of saying blood sugar, is metabolized by our body to produce quick energy. Carbohydrates are our body's preferred source of energy when we exercise. Without adequate carbohydrates in the diet, it's impossible to reach your full potential in the weight room. For the strength athlete, or anyone who is seriously pushing the weights in the gym, carbohydrate intake determines your performance, how much weight you can get up, and how efficiently you can lift it. A lot of people, especially gym bros, believe that protein is the most important macronutrient. And while protein is definitely essential, both figuratively and literally, get it? Because it's essential. It's an essential nutrient. It's funny. Subscribe for more jokes. If you only care about protein and ignore carbohydrates, you're missing a major piece of the puzzle. We know that when we lift weights, muscle tissue gets damaged. In order for us to get bigger and stronger, we need to repair our muscles by eating adequate protein. However, a lot of people don't realize that protein can't do its job of building us back up if our diet lacks sufficient carbohydrate. Why is this the case? Well, we have to talk a little bit about exercise physiology. When you lift heavy weights, or you need to generate a lot of force quickly, you use fast twitch muscle fibers, specifically type 2X muscle fibers. Type 2X are the body's most powerful muscle fibers. Though very strong, these fibers are the least resistant to fatigue, so they tire very easily. The muscle power required to lift a challenging weight must be generated as quickly as possible. So, we recruit type 2X fibers because they are capable of producing the greatest force at the fastest rate. This process has to happen so fast that there's not enough time for oxygen to get to your muscle cells. So we can say that maximal effort weight training must be done anaerobically, meaning without oxygen. But Hannah, what does this have to do with bread? I'm getting there. When oxygen can't be used to make energy, our bodies must rely on an energy system known as anaerobic glycolysis. Looking at the word glycolysis, you'll probably notice that it looks a lot like the word glucose. If you're guessing that anaerobic glycolysis requires glucose, you'd be correct. And remember, carbohydrates break down into glucose, aka sugar. Sugar then literally fuels our activity. So it makes sense that if you were to go into a workout without eating enough carbohydrates, you'll be less capable of producing maximal force. This is not only bad for performance, but it also increases your risk of injury because fast twitch fibers fatigue so easily. They need all the carbs in order to do their job. And if you don't give them the carbs they need, they'll make their own at the expense of the gym bros' beloved protein. Here's how. Your muscle fibers get the glucose they need from your blood. Blood sugar is mostly affected by the recent meal you just ate or didn't eat. After depleting the sugar in your blood, the muscles turn to its own stored glucose supply, called glycogen. Glycogen is simply a bunch of glucose molecules strung together in a long line. If your diet falls short on carbohydrates, you won't have stored glycogen to turn to when your blood sugar drops. If you eat a high-protein meal without carbs, it will be converted to glucose to support your activity. This metabolic process is termed gluconeogenesis. Glucose, genesis, the origin or mode of formation of something. In this circumstance, making carbs out of protein. Back to the gym bro. Eating just chicken and broccoli before a workout means your body will be using that protein to get through your training session rather than using it to build muscle. I don't know about you, but I'd rather eat a bowl of cereal, especially if my chicken would just be transformed into sugar anyway. Speaking of cereal, I did a full video on the truth about quote-unquote healthy cereals. Check it out if you haven't already. Link in the description below. And what about if you didn't eat before your training session at all? That's even worse because you will lose your gains. This is because your body will turn to protein from your muscle for energy. You'll go catabolic, meaning your body will start breaking down your hard-earned gains to extract amino acids to be used in place of sugar. That's why it is so crucial not to overlook the importance of carbohydrates. Carbs spare our existing muscle tissue from being broken down for energy, allow the amino acids from protein to be used to make gains, and give us the energy to lift the weights in the first place. So now that we understand why carbohydrates are necessary for strength training and muscle building, let's apply our newfound knowledge with some evidence-based recommendations. We can use carbs to our advantage by consuming 5 to 6 grams of carbohydrate per 1 kilogram of body weight. Some athletes actually consume upwards of 8 grams per kilogram of body weight before competition for advantageous glycogen storage. A good rule of thumb for the strength athlete or fitness enthusiast is to lean on the higher side of the recommended macronutrient distribution range. So aiming to consume 65% of daily calories from carbs versus 45%. If you are basing this off of the standard 2,000 calorie diet, that would come out to about 1,300 total calories, or 325 grams of carbs. It's important to mention that this is just a quick example. Calorie needs are highly individualized and depend on a wide variety of factors. I actually did a whole video on calories and how to figure out how many your body burns. Be sure to check it out if you haven't already. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope this video taught you something about macros and why carbohydrates should be the primary focus of our diet when training for strength, power, and muscle gains. We covered a lot today, but believe it or not, I barely scratched the surface. We can optimize our nutrition even further by manipulating not only how many carbs we eat, but which types of carbs and at what times. These are all topics for future videos, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. If you're struggling with your nutrition, or you want to start implementing dietary strategies to get even stronger in the gym, book your free nutrition consult with me, Hannah Marie Strong RD. I'll leave links to my website and to the videos I mentioned in the description below. Until next time, keep eating to build a strong physique and make PRs like a freak!